Hello.
Hi.
We're going to just jump right in, and I'm going to ask you, what is the worst example you can think of in your own life or in somebody's life that you know of conflict resolution? Like the worst example. So like ugly
Like
fighting.
a bad conflict
Yeah,
resolution?
like how not to resolve
conflict. Oh gosh, I have so many.
Me too.
I probably have more bad ones than good ones just because of where I'm at in my life, but hopefully further in the future I will. So the one thing that comes to mind is me and my dad. Because
Okay.
we used to get at each other all the time. I remember my mom just being so fed up with the both of us, like we were both of her children. Like I was an only child, by the way, so I didn't have brothers and sisters to fight with, so it was always me and my dad duking it out, and not in the physical way, so don't worry. But
he did not punch me.
He did not punch me in the face. I'm sure he wanted to at some point in time, because I know I wanted to at some point in time, but it never got that far, thankfully. However, there was one particular instance that comes to mind, and now it's funny. I'm sure he would laugh at this. We were driving down the road, and I was listening to this CD that one of my friends burnt for,
back when we burned CDs.
Yeah, back at, like when we LimeWired music. Yeah. So it took a lot to burn that CD, and he burnt multiple copies for all of the friends, and all of us had the same CD. And so it was a very precious CD. If you were raised in the late 90s and early 2000s, you knew what it meant to get a burnt CD from your friend.
Yeah, it takes hours.
It does. It takes hours of patience, plus to make multiple copies. Anyways, listening to that CD, I had just got my driver's license. He was driving with me. I can't remember where we were going, but we were headed down the road, and a song comes on. I think it was Dashboard Confessionals, honestly. A song...
Punk rock, guys. Punk rock.
Yeah, pop punk. Yep, that was me. A song comes on, and it's that, my hopes are so high that your kiss might kill me. Wasn't that Dashboard?
I think so.
So won't you kill me? Anyway, it was that song, and obviously it kept saying, like, kill me in it, and he's like, why are you listening to this music that's talking about killing yourself? And so he takes the CD out, like ejects the CD,
God, he throws it out the window,
and fucking chucks it out the window.
Oh my God.
And I was like heartbroken, because like that was original, one of a kind. Like that CD could never be, well, it could be recreated, but like that CD couldn't have been, like, you can't just walk into a store and buy a burnt CD that has all the songs in the same order. Okay, I was a teenager too, so I was maybe a little dramatic, but it was like heart crushing. And I remember like pulling over, and like I'm walking home. Like it was just like this ultimate moment over like this burnt CD. And like I think back at it, and I'm like, that was so stupid. Like stupid on my part, stupid on his part. Like that whole conversation could have been, that whole incident could have been reversed with a productive conversation.
And so, to be clear, you didn't resolve that conflict. The conflict was the throwing the CD out of the window, but your resolution at that time was to be like, F you, I'm walking home.
Yeah, that was my best way to resolve the conflict, because that was a moment where I felt like I was gonna duke it out with him physically.
And mostly you probably just wanted to punish him, like, I hope you feel bad that I'm walking home.
Yeah, exactly. Probably. I can't remember in the moment what I was thinking, but I remember being heartbroken when he threw the CD out the window. But yeah, so that was one of many moments where we were not in our finest hours together.
Yes. I was not great at
Tell
conflict
me about
resolution.
I'm like, your turn.
I didn't fight much, but when I did, I could be very, very mean. And I can think of instances, a lot of them with my brother, because he was mean too, but also with partners. Like, as I'm thinking about this, the conflict would always be something dumb. Like, my brother would say something mean to me, or I'd say something mean to my brother, or I'd say something mean to my partner. And the resolution for me was always to say the meanest thing that I possibly could to hurt them, because I wanted to win the fight. and I wanted to make them feel bad. And I feel like there was some manipulation in there too. Like I would manipulate to make them feel bad so that they'd feel like I was right, even when I wasn't right. And that's how I would resolve conflicts. Because, and it makes sense when you think about it from like a psychological standpoint. So like I grew up in a rough, unstable childhood. My sense of stability is manipulating the world around me so that it's stable and so that I'm in control.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense from a psychological standpoint.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's how I resolved conflict.
Or at least tried.
Or didn't resolve conflict, as it were.
It's just shitty coping skills that were dealt with. Like it's from your brother, and then you said, you know, from raised in a household, and then me and my father and raised with him. Like, it's just that generational line of like shitty coping skills. You don't learn that necessary conflict resolution.
Yeah, if the people that are teaching you don't have those tools, they can't share them with you.
Right, exactly. So, they only can do what they know, and that's what you know. So, by the way, we're talking about conflict resolution today.
Yes, we are.
And I think it's just important to have that skill set, especially since so many of us probably can relate to our stories about how it's generational, and you know, our parents probably didn't have the best coping skills and their parents didn't have the best coping skills, so we are kind of stuck with what we have. But in this podcast, we're all about breaking the mold, and we're all about growing up, and this is part of growing up is conflict resolution and how to deal with conflict in a healthy way.
And also, I think spotting the patterns. Like, maybe you're a person who's in a relationship who has the same fight all the time. Like, I know that I've been there where you're like,
same.
How are we still fighting about this same thing?
Circles.
Or different relationships, same fight. You know what I mean? So then you have to start wondering, like, well, what role am I playing in this? And, or like, am I causing this? Maybe. Because sometimes you're the problem.
Right.
Taylor Swift said it. I'm not really a Swiftie, but I'm the problem. It's me.
Hi. That's funny. Yeah, I think that conflict resolution can go far, like, because I nowadays, believe it or not, I'm sure he'll say different, maybe, but I don't really, like, me and my partner, we don't really like fight. Like, when I think of fighting, I think of like my past relationships where I'm like punching holes in walls and throwing shit and yelling obscenities and like being mean. We don't do that, thankfully.
Was that modeled for you as a child? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That's how your parents like dealt with conflict?
Yeah, that's how it was. It got to the point. I mean, they were never, now I can say that maybe it was like slightly on the side of domestic violence, but like they never hit each other, or they never, you know, caused harm to each other. They would just get mad and like yell and call each other names and, you know, maybe slam doors here or there, you know, and I thought that was completely normal when I was growing up. I'm sure you have similar stories of like, okay, this is just how life is. Like, this is what it is, and this is how we handle things. Totally wrong, but
I mean, my parents were like throwing things at each other or throwing each other or, you know, worse. But even like with friendships and stuff, like it was always like, okay, well, then let's get in a physical fight about it. Like, I'm gonna punch you then.
Right, yeah. Let's go outside. Let's step outside.
Yeah, let's step outside. Or actually, I'm not even going to give you the chance to step outside, and I'm going to dive at you over this coffee table.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No fault of our parents, though. I don't want to like dog on our parents too much, because they only knew what they knew. Yeah, like, and that's just how it worked.
Like, that was what was modeled for my mom and my dad. Like, so you don't know what you aren't taught. Like,
right. And I think now both my parents are very good at like articulating their emotions, like especially like historically, like talking about feelings was not something that you did. It just wasn't something. I think that's why our generation is so fucked up, because like our parents grew up like, you don't say anything, you don't show anything, you just keep your head up.
Shift coming though. Like, do you sense that? Like,
well, that's like
we've talked about that before, like with like on Mother's Day when we were talking about how like our daughters know more at this age than we knew.
Yes.
And I'm sure our parents thought we knew more at our age than they did at that age, you know?
But I think also the past generations or the older generations are also keying into like what we're talking about, because we are like pro mental health and pro talking about your feelings and
Yeah, they're learning too.
pro all that. They are like buying into that, whereas I don't think they're
not
older
all of them, but like people that are
generations.
open to it are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's some people that are like, no, I'm not doing that. But the people that are open to
think
like learning
there's-
and growing even as they're old.
I think there's always going to be naysayers.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
there's always going to be somebody saying, that's not for me, you know, and that's okay. It's just not, it's their journey, and, you know, hopefully they pick up that tool at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just think that this is such a multi-generational thing. Like, conflict is always going to be there. Like, it's inevitable. You're always going to have a conflict.
Yeah, you're
with
not always
somebody
going to
at
agree
some
with
time.
everybody. Your personality is going to clash with somebody else's personality.
Mm-hmm.
Your traumas are going to clash with somebody else's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Or even your sunshine. Sometimes my sunshine bothers people's not sunshine.
Right.
So,
Right. I mean, I just think of the time when we had our little conflict.
mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about it before, but I just remember that. And I feel like there was some things, like, as I pick that apart and kind of, like, resonate in that moment that we had together, I like, there's some things that we did okay, and there's some things that I felt like I could have improved on. And so,
like, I think in the moment we weren't great at handling our conflict, but as we gave it some time and some room to ruminate, I think we handled it pretty well.
what did you learn? Did you learn anything about, like, I guess I'm relating to that moment because it was you and I, but I guess you could use any conflict that you've been in and how you resolved it or how you didn't. But is there anything that you took out of that situation? Or any situation?
Yeah, I think you have to ask yourself, like, sometimes you're going to be really tempted to do things that maybe aren't the best idea. But I think you have to ask yourself the question, like, am I acting from a place of love or am I acting from a place of selfishness?
Right. Because, like you said earlier, like, you wanted to win. It's not about winning.
Mm-hmm.
When you're having conflict or you're trying to resolve a problem with somebody, it's not about you winning or them winning. It's about coming up with a consensus to make both parties comfortable in the choice, in the decision.
Well, and even with our
in the
conflict,
resolution.
so for listeners that don't know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, share the dirty. Share the dirty.
I dated Leanna's ex-husband, and like, I mean, she dated a little bit my ex, also the father of my kids. So in my mind, that's the excuse I was using. Like, well, you dated my ex first, so what's the problem?
Yeah.
But I think, like, you can sense when, like, it's not going to go well, or like when there's something more here that maybe we should address.
Yeah.
And I could feel that, but I was like, I'm not addressing it. I'm going to pretend that that's not there.
Hide that one in the closet for
And
now.
I could have honestly still probably made that decision and dated him, but I could have done it in a healthier way where we had an honest communication about it. Instead of me pretending like you were totally fine with it,
Mm-hmm.
when I could sense that you were not totally fine with it.
Right.
And had I done that, I probably still could have explored that avenue, but without hurting you and making myself an asshole in the process. And I was an asshole in that situation.
Well, I was kind of an asshole too. So on my side of that, I was trying to control their relationship. I was trying to use the kids as a boundary setter.
Mhm.
Instead of just saying, this makes me uncomfortable, can you please not do that? So I was trying, in my head at the time, I felt like, okay, everybody can come to a group consensus on the kids, right?
Mhm.
Like, kids come first. We all know that. So in my head, I wasn't being malicious and like using them as a pawn. I hate when people say that. But in my head, I was thinking, okay, a healthy boundary that we can all agree on without fighting, because I don't like conflict, would be that we can all agree to not put the kids in the middle. That was the way I was thinking.
Well, and I think maybe even like seeing your ex date somebody new sometimes, even when you're not attached to them anymore, like you were the one that made the decision to leave initially.
Right.
But seeing them move forward with somebody else is still sometimes painful sometimes. Like there can be
And then
emotions wrapped up around in that. And like at the time, I don't think you were in a place where you were willing to be honest about how you were feeling about it.
Well, I think it was more so because of the situation, like you leaving your ex-husband, and then there was my ex-husband, and then you being my best friend, and then the lack of communication. Like,
well, and I'm the friend that doesn't do that. You know what I mean? I'm the friend that is always like, oh, you should never do that.
Right.
And then I'm the one doing it. Yeah.
And so that it threw me for a loop. It wasn't more so the emotional connection I had with my ex-husband. It was like your ex-husband, me being so close to him, and then you being so close to me, and like completely out of character, like you said, and like just the whole scenario and the timing of it was like, whoa, what's going on? Like,
and the timing of it was poor. Like it was, divorce papers weren't even finalized yet. Like I really could have handled that situation better. But sometimes when you're in the moment, you're trying to just like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. What would make me feel better?
Right. You're just trying to find the comfort. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when we're in conflict or in an uncomfortable situation of change or growth, we want to just not sit in that, and we want to distract ourselves from that. So we'll do anything to distract ourselves from it, even if that means hurting other people. We're not trying to hurt other people. We're trying to stop whatever this uncomfortable feeling is inside of us.
And I also think too, like, tell me if I'm wrong, but this is something now that we're kind of dissecting.
It is dissection hour.
Well, this is good. So every time that so I'm going to back up and then I'll tell the story. Every time that I have a conflict with one of my workers or coworkers, what we do is we have a debriefing or feedback session on how that went. And I do that meticulously because it's like, because it's a safe space where we could say, I don't like what you did, or I really like what you did, keep doing that. And it's like something to help build the conflict resolution skills. So this is kind of what we're doing.
So this is kind of like a live conflict resolution, even though like we've already resolved
this and talked about it.
This is like an example of like how you might have a conversation around something tough.
Cool. Hey, real life shit. Yeah. Okay. So, you were also going through a moment of complete change in your life. Like you were shifting your entire universe at that point. Everything. And so I think that your hyper focus was self, and that's always not a bad thing. But I think that played a huge role in the way it played out.
Well, you know what?
And I don't really think that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, there was conflict with everybody when I had that shift to self, because my soul outlook was never on self.
No, you are always the helper.
I was always the everyone
fixer.
Else.
Yeah.
What's going on with you? How can I make you more comfortable? What's going on with you? Like that's why I feel like I attract some friends that don't have a lot of friends, because I allow them to feel like they're my soul universe. And so then I have attracted a lot of people like that, and then they get jealous of each other because they're like, no, I'm the center of her universe. But when I started shifting my perspective to myself
and being selfish,
I remember the first time my sister was like, you're being so selfish right now. And I was like, ow.
Yeah.
But then after I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I deserve to be selfish. It's my turn. Like everybody else is being selfish. Why don't I get to be selfish and put myself first? And and because it was so different from my normal character, I created conflicts with every single person in my life. Like all of my friends were like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
And the real ones are still there, obviously.
Right.
But I have definitely changed that about myself. Like I definitely am more self first. Let me see if this aligns with my values, and then I'll see if I can do that for you.
And I think that's important in conflict resolution too, because there's a lot of boundary setting when you're resolving conflicts. Like you don't want to be the yes man.
Yeah, conflict resolution isn't like, let me just give you whatever you want.
Right. Because you think about toddlers. Okay? Think about children and toddlers. If they are crying for something and you're just like, "What do you want? Oh, you want a candy bar? Here you go."
Mm-hmm.
Is that the best conflict resolution for the moment? Maybe. Is it the best conflict resolution in
Forever.
Yeah, no. I would say no.
Another good example of that I think people are just realizing is like, my child is sad. I want to just make them feel better. Like, one example I heard recently was really profound to me. Okay, your kid says, "I'm stupid. I am not good at math." And you go, "Honey, you're not stupid. This, maybe this class is just too hard for you, or your teacher just sucks because they're not explaining the information to you good enough." And what we, quote unquote, should be doing in that situation instead is being like, "Is that true? Is that how you feel?" And allow them to sit with that. Like, my job is not to make you feel better. My job is to allow you a safe space to feel how you feel. And if that is true, what are you going to do about it? So that we're not running from our feelings. Instead, we're like, "Hey, this is the truth. I'm going to sit with this. It's ugly, but I know that I can sit in ugly, hard feelings and not run away from them. And then I'm going to formulate a plan on how I can fix that."
That's so profound, because it could work anywhere. Because, like, okay, I'm gonna use work for an example, because when I have an employee who comes in and they're stressed, my first instinct, fix it. My first instinct is to
make it better. I don't like you feeling this way. I don't like me feeling this way. Let's fix it.
So I've learned through that is like, okay, if you're stressed, let's talk about it. Why are you stressed? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it. Let's dissect it. Let's look at and find the root cause, because the stress may be coming from home life, maybe coming from one particular family, maybe coming from, a personal issue that you're trying to deal with, like finances, anything. It could be coming from that, but you're centering your stress around the job because you have the stress and you're sitting in it now and you're here at work. Mm-hmm. So if I sit down and allow them to dissect it by asking like open-ended questions and things like that, like, do you really feel that way? Like, that's if you dissect it, it comes to front that it's really not so bad. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic. Mm-hmm. And you can walk through that issue more easily. And then you're also developing conflict resolution within them so that they can resolve their own problems and navigate. And that's how I think that I saw the same video that you did about the kids and like sitting in the emotion. I think that's really important to learn too, because a lot of conflict is centered with emotion.
Yeah. A lot of, like, think about, like, when you get into a fight with somebody, usually it's not the issue that you're fighting about. You're just exploding. You've finally reached your limit and you're exploding on them over something stupid and little.
Right. It's like the guy there's like a book or a short story on how, like, I divorced my husband over like dirty laundry or something. I can't even.
But it's not like the laundry. It's like all of the things
that are
stacked up on top of each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so rule number 1 in conflict resolution: look at your own stuff. Like, how is this affecting me? Why is this affecting me? What am I not addressing and dealing with? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of it is you. A lot of it's you. And if somebody, it's that expression, like, if I bump into you and you're holding us a cup of coffee, coffee's what spills out. Because whatever is inside of you is what's going to spill out when you get bumped. Mm-hmm. If you're in this joyous, wonderful, peaceful place and somebody bumps into me, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, no problem. No worries. I saw you didn't mean to do that."
Yeah.
But if I'm angry and I've already had a shit day and you bump into me, I might just lose it and be like, "What the hell is your problem? Watch where you're going."
Right. How dare you? I think also a second step of conflict resolution on the other side is like the boundary setting. You don't want to be a people pleaser. You don't want to give the candy bar every time the kid cries, You want to be able to set those healthy boundaries so that your partner or whoever you're having this conflict with understands where you stand. Yeah. So that when they go and do a self-check on themselves, like self-regulation, they already know, they're like, okay, she's not going to give me the candy bar whenever I cry. and kids can learn this too. I'm telling you, like young toddlers can learn these boundaries as well.
Mhm.
They will know where you stand if you are consistent with your boundaries.
Mhm.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, set boundaries. Like, I'm not comfortable with you talking to me like that. Or, listen, this is a thing that we've fought about before, and this is a pattern, and I want you to recognize that, and I don't want to have this same argument again. Like, you have to be able to set that, like, here is my line. Let's not do that.
Well, so again, work. Obviously, there's a lot of conflict at my job, okay? We have a high stress environment. But nothing of our own. It's just the kind of work that we do. One of the boundaries I set is that if you come into my office, you need to come in with a pretty, I don't want to say be Holly Sunshine, but I just want to, I don't want to be met with anger or aggression. Like, that's my boundary. So, like, if you come into my office and you're like, what are you doing? I'm like, you need to step out, take a second, and then come back in. And I've done that before to, like, grown-ass adults, and it works. Because, like, if I'm met with aggression, it's triggering to me. And I tell my people that, like, that aggression and such high intense emotion, like, I cannot make effective decisions, and I cannot be helpful if I'm feeling like I'm
being attacked.
Yes. So, and by the way, your body doesn't understand, like, if you are in a high stress environment from emotional stress or being chased by a bear, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
your body
doesn't know the difference.
It doesn't know the difference. It's the same thing. So for me, I have to be in a good place to help people help themselves. And so if you're going to come with me with aggression and intensity, I can't. I'm going to feel like I'm being chased by a bear, and my emotion is going to be to run.
So what if you're not the boss at work and somebody is coming at you with aggression or stress?
Like a client?
No, like say you're not the boss and it's your coworker.
Oh, my coworker.
Like, say your coworker's just an ass. Like, how do
it
you
would
deal
be the same thing
with that conflict?
It'd be the exact same thing. I'm setting.
Because you can't tell them what to do though, because you're not their boss.
Right, but I can say, this is not working. I can set that boundary with anybody. This is not working for me. Can you take a second, and then we can come back when you're a lot more calm. Like, you can do that with anybody. I could do that with my boss, and she'd be like, oh shit, you're like, yeah, you're right. And so I think
that might take some courage, I think, for people.
It's very uncomfortable.
Learn to do that. So,
but that in itself is a conflict that you're resolving. You're setting a boundary so that when you can come into the conversation, you're not already high stressed, and you're able to resolve whatever else is happening easier.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's solid advice, people. You all need to listen to that. And you may just have to work up the gumption to try that. And it doesn't have to be anything, like, huge. Like, you don't have to be like, I will not allow you to speak to me like that. You could just be like, look, the way that this is all going down right now is making me really uncomfortable. Like, I don't like how it's making me feel, so I'm going to step away. Yeah. And we can come back and talk about it when it's calmed down a little.
The first time I heard, it was not my boss who told me, but it was like another boss in another section. And he told me that, and I looked at him like I was crazy, or like he was crazy,
like,
because
what?
Like,
I'm not a toddler.
You're actually telling me to leave. And then I stepped out and took a second, and then I was doing the self-reflection, step 1, self-reflection. I'm like, yeah, he was right. I was a little high strung. Like, probably shouldn't approach that. And then I came back in and everything was fine. He's like, are you feeling better? He even acknowledged my feeling and reassured me that, he was willing to listen at that point, which is good. So that's another part of that, is like, when they step back in, or you step back in, that acknowledgement of like, okay, we're ready to have this conversation. That is reassuring.
I think another part of conflict resolution is also, you have to be willing to listen. It's not always, oh, let me think of a counter argument. It's really, honestly, what do they mean and where are they coming from? Like, being curious, like, why do they feel that way? Like, where is this coming from? And sometimes that's like, oh, I can see how that correlates to their family or their home life. Or, oh, I can see how maybe I could have made them feel that way, even if that wasn't my intention. Like, I can see how that could have come across that way to them.
Yeah, so really doing the reflection and not having an answer already prepared.
You're not
like
you're not having an argument to win the argument. You are listening to what it is they're trying to tell you. Like, this is how I feel and this is why I feel that way. And maybe why they feel that way is ridiculous, but that's not your job. Like,
to dictate
yeah,
that.
that's how they feel, and they're allowed to feel that way. And
Mhm.
your job is to be curious about that and see if maybe you have a part in that. And through exploring that, it takes two people to fight. If you're fighting and the other person isn't fighting back, guess what? That fight's going nowhere. But if you're both fighting and one person's getting mad and the other person's getting madder and the other person's getting madder, that's just going to keep leveling up and you're just going to create a huge fire.
Right.
Whereas if the other person's like, I'm not going to fight with you.
Yeah.
You can't. You literally can't. So that in itself is a really good piece of conflict resolution that I like, because I'm not going to let somebody dictate if I'm going to be mad or not. Like, I can see it almost now. Like, you're trying to make me angry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be angry about
I'm
this.
not going to be
I can see why you're trying to make me feel angry. And I can see why you're upset about this. And then that's how I'll address it. Like, I can see why you're upset about this because I said this.
validation.
And it's triggering this. Is that right? Like, am I on the right page here? Or is there something else you'd like to add? And then it gives them a space to say something. It gives them space to feel like you understand how they feel, which is very powerful.
I think in conflict, people just want to be validated. So, like you were saying, it's not your job to say why they feel that way. It's just your job to know that they feel that way and try to come up with a solution with them.
And also, sometimes we're just not perfect. Like, I am a little brat sometimes.
Same.
And not for any valid reason, but just because I'm a little brat sometimes. And because when I was growing up, it was the wild, wild west. And there was nobody to tell me, you don't get to behave that way. So while I am a very Sally Sunshine, nice, normal human being most of the time, sometimes my little brat comes out. And I'm used to nobody calling me out on the brat. I'm used to just letting the brat do whatever she wants. And still nobody calls me out on it. Like, even my partner now, like, if it's bad, he'll be like, that was not okay. You were very mean to me and I did not like that.
That's what mine does too, actually.
But for the most part, he will let me be a brat. And then because I'm growing up, I'll be journaling or something and I'll be like, yeah, I was being a brat. Like, for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was just being a brat. I'm just being a spoiled little brat. And I can recognize that within myself now. And then I can say, you know what? I'm sorry for being a brat. There was no reason for me to do that. I just was being a brat. And that sometimes is what conflicts are, is people just being a brat. Like, we all have our stuff. We all have our traumas. We all have our triggers. And sometimes we're not going to behave like our best selves.
No. But it's okay if you have somebody who recognizes that in you and knows how to work with you on that and allow you the safe space, like you said, to work past that. I think that's one of the ways that I've gotten better, is because we both have pretty similar partners who allow us to show our emotions and then know that we're going to resolve that in ourselves and say, okay, that was not my best and finest moment. I'm sorry that I said that, or I'm sorry that I did that. And he always goes, it's okay. I understand, and it's always that validation. And it's like, it's okay. Like, I knew he didn't take it personal. He allowed me to be in my negative space for a minute. And then he allowed me to come back and apologize.
And not everybody has the tools to allow that space.
Oh, yeah.
Which can be part of conflict. And then also, if a person is being a brat all the time, like, if I'm being a brat all the time, somebody better call me out on it, because I need that.
Right.
Because sometimes you're being a brat and you don't realize you're being a brat. Or you're being destructive and you don't realize you're being destructive. And you need somebody to provide that mirror for you and say, look, this is what I'm noticing. Every Tuesday before your period, you're mean to me. And I would like for us to come up with a solution. Like, maybe, I'll be like, okay, it's that time. I'm going to tread carefully and I'm just not going to bring any big serious topics up. Or maybe you're going to have the realization about yourself that maybe I shouldn't say that because this is the day where I can't really trust that I'm going to be kind. you know?
Yeah, like just self-isolation for 24 hours. Just kidding.
But, I mean,
whatever works.
Sometimes we all have to have that, you know, we need a mirror and we also need to be able to do the self-reflection. Those are all important.
Mm-hmm. So I think I said something that I wanted to repeat. In a conflict, like we had mentioned before, a lot of it is just emotions coming out and being in that moment of whatever conflict that the person or yourself believes is the actual conflict. But it's actually stemming from probably 100 different things that happened. One of the things that I like to do is not take it personally. So if somebody comes to me and is like pissed off or stressed or something about something else, like they're having an emotion about something, I don't take it personally. I don't put it on me. I don't say, I caused this. I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helps. And I think that helps me realize on how I can outwardly support that person and make them feel validated.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to note that too.
All right, so let's summarize. So conflicts themselves can be because you're a brat or because there is a fight or an argument that is happening between you and another person, whether that's a coworker, a spouse, etc. Or
Emotion-based.
Yeah, or it can be something that's going on within yourself and somebody just bumped into you and all of it has just built to levels that you can't withstand anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all situations of conflicts, or putting yourself like in a bad situation even sometimes. Like,
yeah. I think there's several different ways, but I think that but I think that those are kind of like the things that we've experienced the most of.
And now, how do we get better at conflict resolution? Let's summarize that.
So we talked about, what did you say?
Self-reflection. Looking at yourself, what part you're playing in this. If this is a pattern you have that you're repeating with other people besides just this instance.
So self-reflection and asking yourself the questions as to why you feel this way. Boundary setting.
Mm-hmm. Feedback that other people are giving you.
Feedback portion or debriefing. And not taking it personally.
And then coming up with a plan with whoever it is you're having a conflict with, like having an honest conversation with them about like, what is this? Why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
And not when you're upset, like after you've calmed down.
The debrief.
Yes. And then making a plan on how to get better at this. Because, and you're going to fail that plan. You
probably.
You're not gonna be like, okay, let's make a plan and now forever
it's going to work. I am the master kung fu master at conflict resolution.
There will be times when you will get karate kicked in the forehead by your own leg. And you will have to be like, oh, I'm still doing this.
Yes.
And you have to learn. Like, it's a learning process and it will take time sometimes.
Right. And I think just having supportive people around you who understand and don't take things personally is so important. So, So surround yourself with good people.
Amen.
Yep. Cool. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. All right.
Catch us on the next episode. It is going to be the last episode of this season.
Not forever, just
this season.
We're going to come back even better next season.
Yes, we are.
With guests besides our daughters.
Yeah.
Real guests.
Real people. I promise.
People that want to be here, that we're not forcing like our daughters.
So, gear up for the next episode next week and the last episode coming next week. And I hope you enjoyed this and I hope it helps. Can you drop some questions or tips on how you deal with conflict resolution or questions about how you would like to deal with conflict resolution?
Or even funny stories about the ways in which you have not dealt well with conflict resolution, because we enjoy those also.
Yeah, that's fun. All right. Thank you, friends.
Love you.